Welcome to Podcast Done For You, the show where we make it as easy as possible for you to make the right choices to advance your podcasting career. So let's get started on the show. How to create engaging visuals for podcast promotion on social media. That is the big topic for today's Podcast Done For You show. And it's a very simple one in many respects. The how-to, well, one of the things that you've got to be aware of is that you need someone with some visual capability. Ideally, you have someone that you can use for that. Now, if you don't have someone on your team that is doing a little bit of graphic design, a little bit of flyers for you, then there are plenty of tools out there that you can use that are free. Tools like Canva are great because there are some free intros and little things that you can do. But you really want to step it up a notch and take a look at what some of the other podcasters are doing. Don't be afraid to steal some ideas from there. One of the first things that you want to do is to make sure that you create some differences. The tendency in the past was to make all of your podcasts and the promotions of them a pretty standard template, and therefore everything was just pretty much the same as one another. Well, in an ideal world, particularly when you're promoting it, and I'm extending it beyond social media to also include on YouTube, when you're posting some of the shorts and also the episodes themselves, you want to try and make them look a little bit different. Now, part of doing that is having a collection of great photographs of you as the person that is the center of the podcast to use on the show. Now, and on the graphics, I should say. And so in doing that, you've got lots of things that you can try, all sorts of different poses. I mean, we can have some fun here now. You can do the kind of the thinking pose and variations of that. You can have the kind of the, that sort of a pose, or you can have a demonstrating here and the reverse thereof, and take a look up here and making a point and all of those kinds of things. It's great to have a whole collection of different photos of you in different poses, and, don't all wear the same clothes in each one. If you can get a few variations happening as well. I've got a few different hats, for example, as well as different clothes to wear, different shirts. So add a little bit of variety into it as well. All these things are important to think about when you're doing it. So you've got a collection of things to choose from. Then get bursts of different color. You want to have some different color happening in those graphics so that it draws attention in and one stands out from the next. Yes, you can get a little bit more consistent in terms of the font, and particularly if you're sensitive to your brand and you're really wanting to build that, then make sure that you are keeping in line with some of your brand fonts and even the brand colors. But expand that. Make sure that whatever brand you've got, make sure that your graphic designer originally, whoever you use to create your brand, and if necessary, I'll tell you how you can do it yourself, is that you want to be able to have a series of complementary colors. So not just the brand colors, you want to have complementary colors to your brand that you can utilize. And this is the great space to be able to using them, particularly as the background color for any series of graphics that you're posting for social media. Now, the one thing that you want to remember in creating these additional colors, I should say, is that they do need to be complementary. So those that know color and know color wheels will know that there's basically an opposite to every color that you've put in, which means that they tend to be complementary. And you can have different shades thereof as well. So that's one of the things. Use the little opacity tool and then slide that back and you create variations of the main logo colors. Again, these are all complementary and not meant to take away from your brand colors, which are particularly important for a lot of businesses. Should be important for all businesses, quite frankly. I'm a big advocate for getting your branding right. And it's the same with the font. Try and be consistent with what your brand fonts are, or at least complementary fonts that can be used. Again, if you don't have a graphic designer to be able to do that, there are some simple things that you can do to make sure they complement and fix in with one another. And there are tools like those wheels for the color, which will help you do that. Now, and simple things that you can do with your main font, as well as just creating outlines for them. And so having an outline version of the font, different weights, boldness, different colors and things, those little things can make a difference without them varying massively from what your brand is, still staying true to that brand identity. So once you have great image, you have the fonts and you have the colors, That is the real key to getting it right. Now, of course, the headline is also important. Now, it depends if you are promoting in your social post the full episode, in which case you may just want to simply pick up the title of the episode and whack that up there as the graphic for it. Now, if, of course, you are creating small reels from it and you're promoting those, then you want to have a headline that is, again, going to extract the essence of what that is about, but also speak to SEO and to make sure that you're maximizing the opportunities. Now, I'm talking not just SEO in terms of Google, but depending on the social that you're posting on in the social site. So LinkedIn, for example, will have its own set of things that you might want to focus on, and you can do some searching for some great hashtags and some common headlines and things and getting a sense of what people are talking about. They're the great ways of getting really great headlines for your LinkedIn post. You want to create some intrigue and a sense of how people can get some value out of reading and watching it. Remember that I think that on social media, the most powerful thing to use is not a graphic on its own. The graphic should be part of the start of a short reel. Much better to be posting a really short visual that is a video, I should say, from your podcast. Now, here's a little tip that if you haven't cottoned onto this, and it's something we've talked about in previous episodes, is that if you are really being, conservative and recognizing that editing video takes longer. If you're outsourcing it, it costs more. There's the simple reason for that, is that when you cough, you want to cut that out, right? So if you want to cut that out, you need something else to be able to throw to. Whereas in an audio one, you can literally just cut it and keep moving on with the process. So it is just more involved in doing it with video, and it's something to be aware of. It's not as easy and not always as straightforward to do, and therefore, as I said, more time consuming and more costly. So why tell you all of that? Well, it's important that I believe that when you're recording your podcast, record it as video as well. So separate the audio track, use the audio track for publishing your podcast so it goes out on all of the usual suspects. But then you've got the video as well. So when you want a reel, it's not as big a deal taking a 45 seconds of someone talking, because you actually really don't need to edit too many ums and ahs out of a 45-second bit. Because if they're going, you're probably not the greatest 45 seconds to use in the first place. It's probably not a great thought. So you usually can find a pretty solid 45 seconds, probably 3 or 4 of them out of any podcast episode that you can use to promote. So what you want is the graphic that sits at the front of that when you post that, and at the end as well. So you've got a great graphic to use at the end of your clip on promoting on social media. And why is that important? Because what you want is for people to go then to the full episode to promote how they get into that. QR codes are a great way of filling that up, putting a please subscribe. Here's the QR code taking you straight there to your YouTube video of the full podcast, or if it is an audio only, YouTube, of course, as you know, you can load just audio to the YouTube podcast section and take them straight there. But it doesn't need to be YouTube. You can, of course, take them to Spotify or to Apple or to anywhere else that takes your fancy, wherever you want to promote your podcast. Indeed, it could even be your website if you prefer. But the key is making those graphics a little bit different each time, having a series of templates. It's okay to have templates, but don't have 1 or 2. Have like 6 or 10 of them so that you can keep varying them up and mixing and matching, and so people don't get sick and tired of it. So visually, it's easier when people go to look at a whole bunch of them, you can separate one from the other. Now, if you're having guests on your podcast, which I know a lot of you do, and we've talked about guests in previous episodes, make sure you've got a great photo of them and make sure you have permission to use it, please. Remember, sometimes we steal from Google a photograph that you don't know where it's coming from. It's not a good idea. It could have been from a media outlet, then the media owns that. It could have been from a former workplace and they own that. There are lots of ins and outs as to why you should or shouldn't take a photograph from there. Ideally, if you've recorded the video, you might actually be able to just take a snapshot from there. And many of the tools for recording podcasts allow you to take a snapshot from the actual podcast during the show, so you can take a few of those along the way to have some to choose from. So there's lots of ways you can get the photographs. Don't steal the wrong ones. Make sure you get permission. Ask the people to provide one for you, because people can get quite picky about what photograph they like, and particularly if you're going to be using it for promotional purposes on social media, and you might even be giving them one to use as well. So they're the tips and tricks for making sure that you get the graphics right for your social media promotion of your podcast. Of course, the biggest lesson from all of this is that if you don't want to worry about all of these things, then come talk to us at Podcast Done For You, because we do it all for you. As the name suggests, yes, including the graphics, we'll create all of that for you. So all you need to worry about is showing up as the expert on your own show. So I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested, come see the show notes, book a meeting with us. Let's have a chat about what's possible for your podcast. Until next time, we look forward to your company on the Podcast Done For You show.